next hymn, basically. The hymn to Agni, hymn number 3 from the third mandala of Vishwamitra. Okay, start with mantra. Om Vang me manasi pratishthitam mano me vachi pratishthitam aviravirma edi vedasyama anisthaha shrutam me ma prahasihi anena dhitena horatran samdadhami Ritam vadishyami satyam vadishyami tanmamavatu tadvaktaramavatu avatu mam avatu vaktaram avatu vaktaram Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So again, Vishwamitra, a hymn to Agni, Vaishvanara Agni. Vaishvanara is the universal deity. Vaishvanaraya Prithupajase Vipach Ratnavidhatantach Dharuneshu Gatave. This is Jagati, 12 syllables. Agnir hi devanam rito duvasyati atha dharmani sanata nadudushat. Let's start. So Vaishvanaraya Prithupaja Sevipach Ratnavidhanta Dharuneshu Gatave Agnir hi devanam rito duvasyati atha dharmani sanata nadudushat. The universal Godhead wide in his might. His illuminations create the ecstasies to make a path on the foundations of things. Because the immortal fire sets the gods to their work, none can corrupt the eternal laws. Right. Vaishvanaraya, to Vaishvanara Prithupajas. It is his epithet, whose pajas is Prithu. Pajas is actually could be the might or something like a stomach, some belly actually, which holds the being Prithupajas, the one whose stuff is, power is Prithu, vast. Vipach, interesting word. It's from root vip, to tremble. In ecstasy, stirred, to be excited, inspired. Yes, you can see these words. So these ecstasies or stirring powers of Agni, yes, ecstatic stirrings, offer illuminations, Ratnani, Vidhanta. They offer their Ratnani to move into the foundations of the world. Dharuneshu gatave. Gatave is infinitive, Vedic infinitive. To move, to go into, or in the supports, or in the foundations of the world, I am adding. So it's kind of interesting concept. For Vaishvanara, the vast power, ecstatic stirrings of the flame, offer illuminations, or let us say, realizations of bliss. There is some bliss in it, in the light of consciousness, to move into the foundations of the world. into something which is steady, unchanged. So it can crack into the things static, difficult to move, to change. Agni immortal makes gods to work for him. Agni Rihidevan Amritach Duvasyati. Shobindu says, sets gods to their work. All these foundations nobody can destroy. Dharmani, Atha, and thus these dharmas, sanata, sanatanani, just sanatana, in here sanata, Vedic word, sanatani dharmani, eternal dharmas, nadudushat, nobody could literally destroy, split, or spoil. Interesting word, dushyati, is the root to spoil from here, dushta. And dush is also from dva, dualizing. Yeah? Wanting to dualize is actually to spoil. Antarduto rodasi dasma iyate hota nishatto manushach purohitach kshayam brehantam parid bhushati dyubhich devebhich agnir ishito dhyavasuch. He travels as a messenger between earth and heaven, the doer of works, man's priest of the coal, seated within him, the vichar set in his front. With his light he envelopes the vast home. The fire, missioned by the gods, rich with the thought. He travels antar rodasi. Rodasi are the firmaments, luminous foundations, and that is heaven and earth. Interesting that they are luminous, both. Earth is also luminous, and heaven is also luminous. And they are firmaments, they are foundations between which we have this world. And he is the Duta who travels, iyate, moves in between them. The doer of works, dasma. Dasma, interesting word. Sri Aurobindo dedicates the whole article to it. He connects it with daksha, dasma. It is something to be skillful in doing things. Doer of works. Hota, the invoker of the gods. Nishatta. Ni is down, inside. Down inside, seated within, let us say that way. Manushach Purohita, the one in front of Manus, of the mental being, the leader of the human beings in their journey. Kshayam Brehantam Paribhushati Dyubhih, and with his dews, with his lights or beams of light, he is Paribhushati, he decorates the Kshayam Brehantam, this vast dwelling, he decorates with his lights. Devebhih, and with the gods, Agni, Ishitach, is inspired by the gods. Dhyavasuch, reach in his thought. Or compelled by the gods to move, moved by the gods. The one whose luminous light is determined by the higher mentality of thought. You can even say whose intrinsic light in the manifestation is fixed or determined by the higher mentality, which gives us some kind of sense of what Agni is. His relation to the beyond, to the uninvolved divinity. Ketum yajnanam vidhathasya sadhanam vipraso agnim mahayanta chittibhi apansi yasmin adhisamdadhuh girach tasmin sumnani yajamana achake. Ray of intuition, ketum, of their sacrifices, yajnanam, effective means of the finding of knowledge. Finding of knowledge, vidatha. Vidathasya sadhanam. This is the sadhana of vidatha, of the discovery of knowledge. Viprasach, the luminous seer, illumined seers, literally the ecstatic seers, from Rutvip to tremble in ecstasy. So those who are full of delight, seers, let us say, Agni Mahayanta, they greatened the fire. Chittibhi, by their awakenings to wisdom, by their chittis. Chitti, chit, chi, chinoti, these are all the roots, all the words from one root. Chi, to focus, to concentrate, to gather into one point. From here, chit, consciousness. Chitti is another power of consciousness. By their focusing, by their unwavering concentrations, they greaten the flame, making great. Apamsi yasmin adhisamdadhu girach. It's interesting. And the fire in whom his words and have built into the harmony his works. Very complex idea. Girach are the voices, samdadhu, having established above, in whom, apansi. Apansi are the actions, the activities. So in whom the actions are determined or established by the higher voices from above, or the commands, or the Pashyantivak, or Adesh, of the gods. Yasmin sumnani yajamana achake. In him, the doer of sacrifice desires the things of his happiness. Sumnani. Sumna is suman. Yes, it is that perfect mentality. We spoke about this. Many times it is translated as bliss, but it is something of that supramental mentality, perfect mentality, which unites the call from above, below, and answer from above. In him, Yajamana is seeking to realize his perfect thoughts. It's my kind of interpretation. Perfect thoughts means supramental powers, supramental light in the mind. We all want to realize that supramental light in our mind. Yeah? That's the purpose, the meaning of our evolutionary existence. We exist only for that, to arrive at these highest possible expressions of consciousness, which will be effective on our earthly plane, yes, and will have kind of a power to change our existence. So they will be so effective that every thought will have a power to make alternation in nature. Mother speaks about this knowledge, occult knowledge of the Chaldean tradition and Egyptian Egyptian tradition is also built on Chaldean. And it's interesting that she says there was a knowledge, she says, which was so perfect that it had power to change the world. So knowledge which is absolutely perfect has the power to change things in the world. We know that knowledge is power. But there is delay, there is adjustment, there is so many things in between we have to do in order to make this knowledge effective. Yeah, it is not effective immediately. It needs adjustments. It's always delayed. It's never accepted. There are no tools. Tools have to be developed to make it effective, and so on and so forth. But there is, on some spiritual plane, knowledge, and that is on supramental plane, where it is becoming totally effective for our existence here in the physical frame. So sumnani are these actions of luminous action of consciousness which can effectuate and change our existence. So Yajamana Achake, he is seeking, he wants, he desires those sumnani, those effective illuminations of the supramental plane which may change and alternate his existence. Actually, it's all our yoga is about this, yes, to get to that consciousness which may have effect on our being. And the whole struggle is there only about this, how to make it effective. I want it, but I don't get it. Yeah? So how would I want it and get it immediately? So this is the problem. I want an ice cream, and ice cream doesn't come. Somehow there is a problem. So I have to go somewhere, earn money first, work for somebody, then go to the shop, and so on. So this delay, long delay, it is not my thought, my wish, my sumna is not sumna. It's some kind of so simply mati, opinion which has no effect on life. Shri Aurobindo also says that for sadhana, for the integral yoga, we must get this initiated will to change our life, and that our decisions in our life will be effective. Because otherwise, whatever we decide, it is undone all the time by other powers. And that's why we cannot easily go forward in our sadhana. So this will, which we need, will of Purusha, to say yes or no to movements of Prakriti. Suppose we have that power, and then I can say no to one movement of Prakriti, and Prakriti will never repeat it again. Can you imagine effect of the will? Or I say yes to the movement, and it is always accepted and always promoted by Prakriti. So this will we need to have for integral yoga, he says, and it can be gotten in two ways, either by grace or by initiation. You can be initiated into that will by tradition, by guru, or it comes to you by grace. Without that will, not much can be done, because every time I make a right decision, it is undone by other powers immediately. So I have to make again right decision and again, and it is never totally effective, partially only. It's like with the ice cream, the same story. So these sumnani are wanted by Yajamana, and Yajamana is the one who makes the sacrifice, the offering. It's our soul who is seeking this effective power over nature. Pita yajnanam asuro vipashchitam. Vimanam Agnir Vayunam Cha Vaghatam A Videsha Rodasi Bhuri Varpasa Purupriyo Bhandate Dhama Bhih Kavih. The fire is the father of sacrifice, the mighty Lord of the wise. He is the measure and the manifestation of knowledge. For the priests of the word, he enters into earth and heaven with his manifold shape. Many delightful things are in him. He is the seer who has gladness of all the plains. I follow literally the father of sacrifices, the mighty one of ecstatic seers. He is the Vimana, the measure in vastness, and Vayuna, the it can be the whole world or the path even of the priests. Vaghatam. Vaghat is the one who speaks the word of the priests who express him in their life. He is the path. He enters into the firmaments, heaven and earth, with his multiple beautiful forms. So there are many lights, many forms of Agni in heaven and earth and in between. The seer is lauded or loved, welcomed by all the realms as beloved by all. Bhandate is an interesting word, bhandamana. It is used in a passive sense to be welcomed, to be lauded, to be invited, or how to say, to be loved, greeted even, to be greeted even. Most probably from Bahad, and Bhadra is from here. Yes, the same word Bhadra, as delight, as beauty, as goodness. Yeah? And I will take one more. Chandramagnim, Chandraratham, Harivratam, Harivratam, Vaishvanaram, Apsushadam, Suvarvidam, Vigaham, Turnim, Tavishibhih Avritam, Bhurnim Devasa Iha, Sushriyam Dadhu. The gods have sat in this world in his beauty and glory, the delightful fire. With his chariot of delight, luminous in the way of his workings, the universal Godhead who is seated in the waters, who is the discoverer of the sun world, who enters into the depths and is swift to cross beyond, who is wrapped in his mights and bears in himself all things. Chandram Agnim. So we start from the end, where the Devasach, the gods, Iha here, Dadhu, establish him, Sushriyam, the one who is established perfectly in the world, Bhurnim, the, how to quote it, someone who is terrible or mighty or restless and terrible. Him they perfectly established here, perfectly dwelling in the world, established here, covered with his Tavishi Bihich, with his luminous powers, Avritam, covered, Turnim, the one who is speedy, quick, Vigaham, deep, deep and quick and covered with his luminous powers, terrible and restless, the gods established here as well. Established as well. The words are missing. Shriyam, Sushriya, interesting. Who has a perfect dwelling. And whom him establish, who is Suvarvidan, who finds Svar world, vid, finding or knowing the Svar world, Apsushadam, seated in the waters, waters up, Apsu is locative in the waters, Shadam, Sadam, seated. Vaishvanaram, the universal Godhead, Hari Vratam, whose action is golden. Hari is gold, golden Vrata action or movement, whose movement is golden. Chandraratham, whose Ratha is luminous. Chandramagnim, the Agni, luminous, with luminous Ratha, with golden movement, the universal Godhead seated in the cosmic waters, finding the Svar world, the world of the sun, deep and speedy, quick or swift, with his luminous powers supporting him, accompanying him, terrible. The gods here establish as well established. So now I covered it all. So it gives you a sense of how Rishi views the flame as the divine presence in this world. All right. If you have any ideas about this, most probably you have. I'm already like fulfilled. I can stop here. These words are like honey words, you know, they are kind of caressing the soul or caressing the higher spirit from above the head. You could feel immediately the connection to the presence. And that's why we do it, actually. We put ourselves into some ecstatic state, which is otherwise unknown to this being. It's too human, too animal, too physical to really have that lofty touch. And the beauty of the Veda is actually that it is noticed there is hardly any peace or equanimity or equality, all those things which we discuss later as important. Yeah? We discussed in our gathering yesterday about peace and equality and indifference and so on and so forth. These are all the elements of the yoga which came later when human beings became very egoistic and self-centered. And then we had to remove those, self-centeredness and egoism from them by those new approaches to yoga as equality, equanimity, and then only you will be ready to receive. In the Veda, there is no word about it. It's all a direct presence of the flame, of the light, and exaltation of that light and presence, which actually cleans up the whole egoistic dimension by itself automatically. But it has power in it. It has that decisive lightning in it, which makes you alive rather than, peacefully dead, like a vegetable. You want to live this life. You want to be part of this enterprise, spiritual enterprise. Everything is being spiritualized, charged with the spirit. You, things, relations, everything having a totally new dimension from here. And not some kind of egoistic finding the way of saving oneself or finding some, mukti or some way out and be safe and not to be troubled. There is no even fear against the suffering. The idea of suffering, it does not appear even. Different consideration. This is quite interesting. Yeah? Very luminous.
Vladimir,
Yeah.
Vladimir, you mentioned in the very first verse the coming of Agni, the stirring up of ecstasy, and the luminous light, which makes the gods move. So I was thinking, is the are the gods static or non-moving on both sides of the spheres, both in heaven as well as on earth, so that Agni comes here and makes both of them move?
Yeah, move or work
Is
rather. Work,
work, move, yes, okay.
means
But
work for the manifestation. Otherwise, they move somewhere there in their own worlds, of course. But they are
okay,
useless for us. But for us to make them work, it's his
okay,
major purpose. Yeah, he
okay,
involves
okay.
them. He calls to them. He brings them down. Bring here the gods. You remember the first verse, yes?
Yes, okay.
Otherwise, they will not come without him. Yeah? They have no reason to come here into the physical, narrow consciousness. They have luminous powers of consciousness, universal consciousness. They are happy in their own worlds quite a bit. But because of his command, as divine will, as Yajamana here, in the heart of man, that flame commands, calls to them, aspires, and they must come. So, or he brings them down, it's even better. He sacrifices them, he has, in another word said, in another verse. Sadivan he yajati, he sacrifices here the gods. That means he makes them work here for us, for the darkened consciousness, because this darkened consciousness is the fallen divine of the first stage of creation. And it has to be illumined and brought back to its self-awareness. For that, that flame came down. Yeah? And for that, he is here working. Otherwise, what for? Why all this trouble of bringing gods down, and why to at all aspire to them? We wrongly see our purpose and life here. We think we live by ourselves, as if we are kind of given this life and it is as it is. No, it's not. It is as it is. It's a transitional being. That's why we are mortals. We are mortals because the work we do here is with mortality. We took onto ourselves the mortality and want to turn it into the immortality. And for that, we need to involve him, the immortal among mortals. Yes? He's within us, and he has to work to call the powers which will help us uh, to effectuate his presence here more and more. And by his stepping forward, transform all this or sacrifice it. Transform is to sacrifice, to take and turn it into the divine prototypes or properties, to find those divine properties and reveal them in all things, which we took onto ourselves as mortality. So this process is ongoing, and we are transitional beings, mortals on one side and immortals on the other. And these two joined the party, and we called to the higher powers, our universal consciousness. It is also ours, but we do not know that. We look at them as gods, objectively some or subjectively existing. But at the end, they turn to be our own powers. It's an amazing vision of the Veda, actually, because we all represent here the supreme. The individuals represent supreme in the individual frame. So all the gods, all the powers are actually his powers. So we are growing into that universal realm, becoming more and more universal in our consciousness, staying in the individual frame. And this is the miraculous ongoing transformation. So we will maintain individual frame and will be universal in our consciousness. This is the game. Today, everybody was traveling. I was thinking that maybe we, I don't remember. Did we agree something? I will ask you, Kinshuk, because nobody remembers this.
No, I don't remember.
No.
Anything from last class? No.
No. Okay, then I did it for Sanskrit class or something else. I have these deja vus. I don't know in which class we agreed to meet later or something.
No, last hymns class, I don't think so.
No, great.
Yeah, it was not said.
Okay.
Vladimir, I had a quick question. I'm sorry about the background noise.
No problem.
The question was that do we therefore grow into the universal man, the Vaishvanara? From the individual, we grow into the universal? Is that?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So you began with the universal man. So that was my question. Is Agni related to the universal man? Is he synonymous? Yes.
Right,
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
You remember the end of the Taittiriya where it is said that he is traveling in all of these worlds. First, he joins all the levels of consciousness, starting from Annamaya Atman, and to coming to the transcendental Anandamaya Atman, and that. And then it is said that he is seated here and sings this hymn, and he moves in all the worlds, partaking of any delight from them and taking any form on those levels, in those realms. This is exactly universal consciousness of the individual.
So in the universal consciousness, you can partake of any form.
Right. Take any form and partake of any delight.
Delight. Yes. Okay. Wow.
That means interchange, exchange with the beings on that level. Yeah. Enter into relations with those beings or those entities on that level. and get delight from them. Exchange. Exchange is always delight. Yeah? From
Yes.
Bhaj, to share.
Yes.
Delight is always sharing. Interesting.
Mm.
Yeah? It's not something else.
Yes.
I also got a sense from the very first verse that even before the illumination, there was this sharing of delight, and that is how things started to move. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
stirring. You're right. Vipa. This word vip is used to ecstatic stirring within, yeah? which generates the light. Oh, absolutely. Oh, which leads you to the finding of the knowledge. Yeah. It's intrinsic in Agni, that ecstatic kind of heat or vibration of energy, which actually is powerful kind of drive towards knowledge. And that is delight, ecstatic stirring. There is a within him. Right.
and then sharing.
And then the light which leads you, yes, to the finding of the knowledge, which is exactly that. Yes, when you find, discover, that discovery is always a sharing, always. It's from root vid, to discover, to see in a Latin language, or to find out, to obtain also, to acquire something you didn't have and you got there. Yeah? You came to know, or you open up to something. And it's always somewhere in the realm of exchange. But that deeper stirring within oneself is actually determining the exchange, the need of exchange. That vibration, original ecstatic vibration, wants to vibrate on the higher scale, on the deeper scale, and start including others into that vibration. Why we want to share things, why we don't want to keep them for ourselves. For example, people who have money and this and that, rich people, why do they want to always include others into this kind of enterprise of their richness? Why can't they be happy with what they have by themselves? No way. Yeah? Especially with money, because money is that delight which has to be shared. Yeah, that enjoyment. You cannot enjoy things by yourself. It is absolutely without any joy. The other day, yesterday, I was watching a film where the mafiosi, the head of mafia, is sitting in the huge room, empty, absolutely empty, with one table and one meal. He alone eats there, clunking with his forks and knives, cluck, cluck, and absolute silence. And he is so sour and so terribly unhappy on his face. No wonder there is no happiness in eating by oneself. And when people have even few things, small things, and they share with others, and that makes others happy, that brings the delight. Sometimes it is even giving away your delight to others and make them, if they need it most, makes you even more happy, happier than getting it for yourself. Did you notice this? Yeah. It's really more refined happiness. It reminded me of the story of this beautiful actress who was very generous. I forgot her name. and we were discussing generosity and she had an experience with her father when she was young. They had very little money, but they went to the circus and she was standing in the queue, and before them there was the whole family, like 4 children. You remember the story, yes?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
And the father was very proud, and they were from their talking, she understood their first time going to the circus, and they were so excited. And their mother was also very, very neat and it was visible that they were poor, but they were well kept. And so he was very proud with his family, 4 kids, and he came to this cashier, and then he found out that the tickets are very expensive and he cannot afford them. And he looked at his wife looked at him with this terrible, and kids were still excited there behind them, didn't notice anything. And then her father threw on the ground $20. And then he picked it up and said, "Oh, you lost it, sir. It fell from your purse." And he looked at him with eyes full of tears and said, "Thank you, taking this $20. And so they went to the circus, and this family with this daughter, they couldn't go because they didn't have money anymore. So they came home. But she said this was the greatest gift of her life. The delight is greater than going to the circus. Yeah, this is sharing. This is the delight. This is the proper thing. And this is built, the whole sacrifice. Nature is giving, sharing constantly. This is full of delight. Life is full of delight because of this.
No, but the moment one gets a sense of giving something to somebody, or a sense of sacrificing, that fun is lost. I think one has to kind of just, I mean, the very word sacrificing or giving or philanthropy, it spoils the fun entirely.
Right.
I mean, it
the
just
word
makes
misleading. Yes, correct. I understand what you mean. But sacrifice is a wrongly understood word. It is understood that you have to give up something you want, like, for something you want or like later, or maybe more.
Yeah. Or in exchange, or for a price or whatever.
But if you take it differently, as, for example, making mundane life sacred, sacrifice, you're making everything sacred, full of presence of the spirit. Yeah, it's not cutting out from yourself. By the way, it's quite understandable that there are 2 parts in the sacrifice. One is that our egoistic being wants to keep what it has, and it has to give up that in order to gain some spiritual presence. And that is painful for the egoistic being. That's from where pain is coming from. You know? But from the point of view of the spiritual being, it's just a delight. Because we give something which is mundane to something which is sacred, and it is turned to be actually the right thing to do or to be.
You know, every time they use this "sue" word, I mean, sue good or whatever, I keep on feeling that they are actually talking about some rightness of things, or some just the right thing. I mean, this giving or this sacrifice is basically you are basically falling into the right law, instead of having a law of your own, which kind of leads you nowhere. You are able to fall into a law of giving or law of sacrifice or whatever.
Right.
So there's nothing very special about it, but one has to know that this is the law, possibly.
Yeah. Once you know that this is the true way of being, then of course there's nothing special about it anymore. Everything else looks like a distortion, yeah, to live for oneself, to eat for oneself. As Krishna says in the Gita, the one who cooks food and eats for oneself, he is a thief. Why? Because how can you enjoy the world for yourself, for your, this egoistic self? It's totally tasteless. There is no delight in it. It's only in sharing that the delight comes. That's why I say that rich people want to show their richness, be praised, and, share some kind of food. I remember one rich person in Oroville, very rich. He was so stingy, you could not get from him 1 paisa. But he liked to invite others to eat. He was always kind of very happy to see them eating his food. Somehow he needed some kind of compensation for all that, trouble. So sharing of delight is so important. And we are given all. Look, sun, wind, air, water, bodies. We are given everything for sharing. It's all given to us. We didn't earn it. We didn't build it. We just got it for free. All right. Okay, we can stop here for today and then continue next time. Close
Okay.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Dukkha bhag bhavet. The one who shares dukkha should not be nobody. So, bhag from bhaj again. Interesting.
Thank you, Vladimir.
Thank
Thank
you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Travel safe. They're traveling to the
Okay.
UK.
Yes.
Mm.
You too stay safe and eat well.
Eat
That's
food.
Soma.
Ice creams.
Right. We'll go for it. Yes. Okay. Bye. See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.